The art of AI debugging. The skill that separates successful vibe coders from those who give up in frustration is debugging AI-generated code. This isn't like traditional debugging. The patterns are different, the solutions are different, and the mindset needs to be completely different. Most people think that because AI writes the code, it should work perfectly from the start. That's like expecting a first draft of a novel to be ready for publication. AI assistants are incredibly powerful, but they're not perfect. They make mistakes, introduce bugs, and sometimes create code that looks right but doesn't function correctly. Your ability to identify and fix these issues determines whether you build working applications or expensive paperweights that impress nobody and solve no problems. Debugging is the make or break skill for vibe coding because AI assistants will produce buggy code, and your response to those bugs determines your success. Traditional developers expect bugs and have systematic approaches for finding and fixing them. Many vibe coders, especially those without extensive programming backgrounds, hit their first major bug and assume they're doing something wrong. They abandon their projects or start over from scratch, instead of learning to work through problems systematically. What separates successful vibe coders from those who quit is understanding that debugging is part of the process, not a sign of failure. Every professional application goes through multiple rounds of bug fixing before it's ready for user. The systematic debugging approach for AI-generated code involves understanding common AI mistakes, recognizing patterns and failures, and knowing how to guide AI towards solutions. Traditional debugging focuses on understanding exactly what the code does and why it's not working. AI debugging focuses on describing the problem clearly enough that the AI can fix it. You don't need to understand every line of code to debug effectively. You need to understand what should happen, what's actually happening, and how to communicate that difference to your AI assistant. This shift in approach makes debugging accessible, even if you don't have deep programming knowledge. The most effective debugging workflow follows 4 steps: identify, isolate, communicate, and verify. Identify means recognizing that something isn't working and understanding what the expected behavior should be. Instead of diving into code, you focus on user experience. What should happen when someone clicks this button? What actually happens instead? Isolate means narrowing down where the problem occurs. Which specific feature or interaction is broken? When does the problem happen? Communicate means describing the problem to your AI assistant in a way that leads to effective solutions. Verify means testing the fix to ensure it actually solves the problem without creating new issues. Here's an insider technique that dramatically improves resolution speed. Error message translation. AI assistants respond better to certain types of error descriptions, and knowing how to communicate problems makes the difference between quick fixes and frustrating debugging sessions. Instead of saying it's broken, describe the specific behavior you observe. Instead of copying cryptic error messages without context, explain what you were trying to accomplish when the error occurred. Instead of asking the AI to fix this, provide the error message along with your understanding of what should happen instead. This communication style helps the AI understand not just what's wrong, but what right looks like. Let me walk you through real debugging sessions with common AI-generated bugs. Imagine you're building a task management app, and the delete button isn't working. Traditional debugging would involve examining the JavaScript event handlers and checking the database connections. AI debugging starts with clear problem description. When users click the delete button next to a task, nothing happens. The task should disappear from the list and be removed from the database. You provide this description along with any error messages from the browser console. The AI can then focus on the specific interaction that's failing rather than guessing what might be wrong. Another common scenario involves styling issues where the application works but looks wrong. Maybe your navigation menu overlaps with the main content on mobile devices. Traditional debugging would involve examining CSS rules and media queries. AI debugging focuses on describing the visual problem. The navigation menu covers the main content on screens smaller than 768 pixels wide. The menu should either collapse into a hamburger icon or stack vertically without covering other content. This description gives the AI enough context to suggest appropriate CSS fixes without requiring you to understand responsive design principles. The psychological challenge of debugging AI code when you don't fully understand the underlying implementation can be overwhelming. Many vibe coders feel helpless when faced with bugs because they can't trace through the code logic manually. Here's the mindset shift that builds confidence. You don't need to understand how the code works to debug effectively. You need to understand how the application should behave for users. Focus on the user experience rather than the technical implementation. When something doesn't work as expected, describe the problem from the user's perspective. Collaborative debugging represents a fundamental shift from traditional approaches, where you work with AI assistants to understand and fix problems together. This teamwork approach combines your understanding of what the application should do with the AI's ability to analyze and modify code. You provide context about user needs and expected behavior. The AI provides technical analysis and suggested fixes. Together, you can solve problems that would be difficult for either of you alone. The key insight that transforms your debugging effectiveness is understanding that debugging is a collaborative conversation with your AI assistant rather than a solo technical investigation. You provide human insight about what should happen and why it matters. The AI provides technical analysis and implementation fixes. This partnership approach makes debugging accessible regardless of your programming background, while producing reliable solutions that actually work for users.